Seminar number 15, Data Management. Although we often hear data speak for themselves, their voices can be soft and sly. Over the course of these seminars, we've discussed several different types of study design. We are now ready to discuss how to manage all of the data that is collected during the course of a study. All information about subjects and variables should reside in a computer database. Where study data is stored and protected needs to be disclosed on an IRB application. The computer database should be password protected and the information needs to be de-identified. These are requirements of the IRB application process, so be prepared to explain how your subjects are protected in your study. It is easiest organizing study data in a spreadsheet. The most commonly used spreadsheet throughout the world is Excel by Microsoft. Excel is universally available. It can be linked to access another Microsoft product. Excel provides basic descriptive data output. Excel integrates with most analytic software, and Excel can export data to Numbers, which is an Apple product. Now, some folks are not fans of Microsoft products and instead prefer to use anything Apple. The Apple spreadsheet is called Numbers, and like all other Apple products, it has an easier interface than Excel. Numbers has a quicker descriptive data output process. Unfortunately, Numbers is not universally available. It does not integrate into analytic software easily. And although one can import Excel data into Numbers, the opposite is not true. One cannot take information in Numbers and export it to Excel. So I suggest that all investigators build their spreadsheet in Excel first, because then it can be shared with co-investigators more easily, and the data can be imported more easily into any statistical software machine. If you don't plan on sharing your data with others, or you don't think you'll require anything other than very simple descriptive statistics, then building your spreadsheet in Numbers is probably fine. I am a huge fan of Apple, but I still build my spreadsheets in Excel first. It is important to decide before you start your study how data will be entered into your spreadsheet. Will you use paper data sheets and then use RAs to transcribe data by keyboard? Or will you use something like Access and input data in real time directly? There are pros and cons to both strategies. Transcription from paper certainly results in some transcription errors, whereas direct keyboard input using a program like Access can be awkward depending on the study. But what is nice about direct keyboard entry is that one can build in validation checks and skip logic steps to allow one to breeze through the entry process with minimal error. It is also important to understand how to organize different response formats in your spreadsheet. Coded versus free text is one formatting question that needs to be determined during the design process, not after the data has already been collected. Coded responses are much easier to analyze, whereas free text is way more cumbersome and is also more prone to transcription errors. Also, the investigator needs to choose between exhaustive and exclusive responses. An exhaustive response is where all possible options are entered and accounted for, whereas an exclusive response format is where no more than one option can be entered or chosen. Again, for analytical ease, exclusive responses are much easier to analyze at the end of the study process. When building your spreadsheet, a few conventions should be followed. Typically, in the row is the subject. In the column, we include the variables. Male is typically coded 1, female is typically coded 0, yes is coded 1, no is coded 0. And each cell should only include one data item. If you deviate from these conventions or need to include other coded responses, include a legend in your spreadsheet to minimize confusion among all who access your database. In my experience, the more you simplify your database to ones and zeros, the easier it will be to analyze in the future. Let's look at some example spreadsheets to understand these recommendations better. Here we have an Excel spreadsheet. We have subjects in rows, variables in columns. The cases are de-identified. Age is included in column B. Gender is coded as 1 or 0. Now one can easily highlight a column with numerical data to generate simple descriptive results. For instance, the mean age in this group is 37.2, and 5 of the 10 subjects are males. However, the final 4 columns include free text responses. Analysis of those columns cannot be done using the spreadsheet. Furthermore, some of these cells include multiple data responses. Cell E4, for instance, contains nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, 3 different responses. So how can an investigator create variables that fit the 1 or 0 model? The easiest way to do this is to create a separate column for each possible response, and then include a 1 if present and 0 if not present. For a reason, the exclusive response format should be used. Only a single cell can include a 1, the rest must include a 0. If you look at row 10, see how suicide includes a 1 in column F only? For symptoms, since one can have more than one finding in a single subject, the exhaustive format can be used, and a 1 is placed in every cell where a symptom is present. See row 4, where nausea and vomiting and diarrhea each include a 1. One can then easily calculate counts to generate descriptive data quickly by highlighting the appropriate column and choosing the appropriate function in Excel's toolbar. 3 poisonings occurred from medication error. 4 subjects had nausea. Outcome can also be divided into several distinct columns with a 1 in only one of the cells. Remember, this is the exclusive response formatting system. I also like to include comments or notes in a separate column at the very end of each subject row in order to help me understand the context of a case if needed. This is a screenshot from Numbers. Just highlighting the row automatically generates descriptive data: sum, average, minimum, maximum, whereas each calculation in Excel requires a separate series of keyboard strokes. Just use whatever spreadsheet meets your study needs. Regarding choice of statistical software, I suggest you use whatever you learned on FIRST or whatever your department sponsors. All have their advantages and disadvantages, all have their quirks. So if you are the primary investigator, try not being the one who enters in all of the study data into a spreadsheet. Recruit trainees to serve as RAs to enter data. So train the data managers if you've recruited RAs. Make sure the variables are defined precisely to minimize confusion. Determine a standard code for not charted. Make sure you pilot data entry with your RAs and monitor progress periodically. In our next 2 seminars, we will talk about statistical strategies for your data.